Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. For this video, I will be showing you how to build and decorate my dirty chai drip cake. You can find the recipe for this cake on my website, coconibs.ca. The first thing we're going to do is cut the cakes. Using a paring knife and ruler, make a mark on the cake where you want to cut the top off. You can make multiple marks around the cake at this measurement. Grab a large serrated knife, line it up with one of the marks, and start to cut in a circular motion and a cross motion, moving from mark to mark. Repeat this same process to cut the cake into 2 layers. Make sure to keep your knife as level as possible. Repeat all of these steps with the second cake. Put a slightly damp paper towel and your cake board on your turntable and put a dollop of icing in the center. Put your first cake layer onto the cake board and press down. The first and last layers of the cake should be the bottoms of the original 2 cakes that you started with. Dab on an even layer of simple syrup using a pastry brush. Make sure to get as close to the edge as possible, as that is where the cake is the most dry. Next, use a piping bag and the number 808 piping tip to pipe a circle of buttercream around the edge of the cake. Continue in a spiral motion to fill in the rest of the layer. Use an offset spatula to smooth out the buttercream. Keep the spatula as level as you can by putting the end closest to the handle in the center of the cake. Hold the spatula still at a 45-degree angle as you spin the turntable with your other hand. Sprinkle on some cocoa nibs. Place the next cake layer on top, then add your simple syrup. For this layer, we're going to add a coffee ganache filling. Pipe a circle of buttercream around the edge of the cake, then fill the center with the coffee ganache. It's important that your ganache is at room temperature, otherwise the cake will not be very stable and the layers will slide around. The ganache will also soak into the cake if it's too warm, leaving you with less filling. You don't want the ganache to come up higher than the buttercream because when you add your next layer, you will press it down and you won't want ganache oozing out the sides. Sprinkle on some more cocoa nibs. Place the next layer on top and repeat the steps from the first layer. Finally, add the last layer on top. Using your offset spatula, spread any buttercream that's hanging out the sides around the cake. Next, grab your piping bag and pipe a small amount of buttercream around the cake in a zigzag motion. This will be for our crumb coat. Spread the icing around the cake with your offset, focusing on completely covering the bottom and creating a lip around the top. Add some icing to the top of the cake and begin pulling in the top lip as well. Spread the icing evenly around with your offset spatula. Smooth out the buttercream with your scraper by holding at a 45-degree angle with one hand and spinning the turntable with the other. Pull in the top with your offset. Using a paring knife, scrape away any crumbs or icing on the cake board, then wipe it clean with a cloth. Put the cake in the fridge for at least 20 minutes or until the buttercream has formed a crust. For the next part, you will want to make sure your buttercream is smooth and whipped up, so I suggest mixing it on low speed while the cake is cooling in the fridge. Use your piping bag and the number 808 piping tip and pipe around the outside of the cake. Fill in any empty spaces with more buttercream. Using your offset spatula, pull the icing upwards on the cake, starting at the base. You will again want to create a lip at the top of the cake. Start smoothing everything out with your scraper, paying close attention to the angle that you have the scraper at. Fill in any uneven places. You can even pipe a ring around the top to get that nice lip. Do a few more spins with the scraper to get things really smoothed out. Add some buttercream to the top and pull in the top lip as well. Smooth the top out with your offset and make sure that the top is level. Give it a few more scrapes, then pull the top edge in. Finally, clean up your cake board and pop the cake in the fridge for an hour. When doing a drip cake, the cake needs to be very chilled, so that's why I suggest leaving it in there for that long. Now it's time for the drip. The ganache for the drip needs to be at the right temperature. Too warm and the drips will be thin and go right to the bottom of the cake. Too cool and the drips will be lumpy and barely move at all. Using a spoon, spoon on little amounts of ganache at a time around the border. Push the ganache towards the edge of the cake to help it drip down. After the border is done, spoon some ganache into the middle of the cake and spread it around with your offset. Be careful not to push the ganache too far towards the edge because that could ruin the drips that you've already made. Do a gentle spin with your offset to smooth the top out. Let the ganache set at room temperature for about 15 minutes, then put the cake in the fridge. If the ganache cools too quickly, it runs the risk of cracking. Once the ganache is set, you can pipe a border around the top using the number 69 tip. Pipe one layer, then add a second layer on top. Next, sprinkle some cocoa nibs on top. I've dusted mine in some edible gold powder first. Lastly, I'm adding some gold foil around the sides to really elevate the look of this cake. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you're enjoying the amazing cake that you just made. I'll see you at the next video.